It's February, a great time to check in with those New Year resolutions that we set last month. Personally, I made a goal to read more this year, and the digital reading journal is serving as a bit of external motivation, as well as just a way to track my reads and my TBR lists. So let's go grab my iPad and jump into the digital reading journal. Okay, so I have my iPad mini out today, but you can use the reading journal across any iPad or any tablet that supports PDF, editing, and mockup style apps. So the app that I'll be using today to show off the digital reading journal is GoodNotes, but you can use Zinnia, NoteShelf, Notability. There's a lot of apps now that support PDF import and hyperlinks, and so I'm going to be showing it in GoodNotes today, but just keep in mind that there are many tablets and iPads and devices that are compatible with PDF planners like the digital reading journal. So this is what the digital reading journal looks like. So here is the first cover, the second cover, we have the third cover here, fourth cover, and then here is the last cover, which is kind of a blend of the previous cover's colors. If we go into our thumbnail view here, we can see all of the pages that are involved in the digital reading journal here. If I scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see that there are 295 pages in this journal, at least in my journal. I have been working in it a bit. If you don't want to display all of the covers, you can come down here and move them to the trash. However, I don't recommend deleting pages because sometimes there will be issues with breaking the hyperlinks. None of the covers are hyperlinked, so you shouldn't have an issue with deleting those. But if you want to just display a different cover, so for instance, if I back out of here and scroll down, you can see it's displaying this cover. But if I want to switch it to, so let's say I want to display this cover though, all I have to do is tap hold and then I can drag it. And then if I hit close and back out, it displays that cover now. So you can switch out the covers just by dragging and dropping it into the very kind of first page of the digital reading journal. Don't necessarily recommend deleting them and just using this option because that's the safer option, but that's how you can make use of the different covers with your reading journal. All right, so now that I have my reading journal here, we have our tabs along the side. We have this hamburger icon. We have my library, reading list, series list, quotes collection, my trackers, challenges, and notes. If I hit the hamburger icon here, or these three little lines, it brings us to kind of an overview of the reading journal. We have a book of the month section where you can write your favorite book of the month. And then we have the days spent reading section, which for me, that would just track what days and how often I am reading. And so the last I used this planner was actually not necessarily a month ago. I haven't come back to this section here, so it's great that I can illustrate this. So let me pick my color here. Okay, so that's the color I used. So I can then mark in the days that I had read. Or you can come in here with your pen tool and you can kind of color them in this way, or you can manually color them in that way. So there's a lot that you can do with that section of the reading journal. And then over here we have a little blank section that you can kind of turn into whatever you want for your front of the reading journal. You can put a quote here, books you want to read, your vision board for reading and whatnot. So there's a lot that you can do with this page. Moving into the My Library section, this is where you can see all of your books at a glance, or your single standalone novels. There is a section for series, so you can have and display your series lists if you wanted to. The My Library serves as kind of single or standalone novels. So here you can write the title, the author of the book, as well as your rating, and then you can paste the cover of your novel here. What's great is that even if you paste the picture of your novel, you can actually click into these and it brings you to a book review page. Here you can paste the cover again, the title of the author. We have genre, date published, number of pages, start date and end date for your reading, and then a summary of the book. You have your rating here again, and here's a ton of space for you to write your review of the book. And then as well as any notable parts or your favorite quotes or anything. And then we have an additional kind of blank note section here that you can make use of however you see fit. Alright, so heading back to my library section, I've actually gotten a ton of questions about how I've done these stars, which I think is so funny, but I actually just used the pen tool in GoodNotes. I just selected a color that I like, for instance, so here's a random color, and what you can do is you can try to draw a star, and GoodNotes will try and correct it, and that's actually pretty good, and then you can just color it in. Once you get one star that you really like, to save time, all I do is lasso, copy, and paste the number of stars that I need. And so for instance, if I think something is 2 stars, I'm just going to lasso and copy 2 stars. If I think something is 5 stars, I'm going to lasso and copy something that's 5 stars. However, I honestly don't like rating books. I might actually remove the stars in this section by using either the whiteout trick or the screenshot trick, which is essentially where you just take a white pen or you do the screenshot and you just color over whatever you don't want to see in your planner or your notebook. I might just color over the stars or use a screenshot trick to remove them, just because I really don't like rating books. I feel so bad. I don't know what it is. So every book here has 5 stars, even though I like some more than others. But anyway, that's how I did these stars, for anyone wondering. And then you can go into each of the books here, and I haven't filled out everything as far as the books I've read, but this is how you would kind of go about filling that out. So these are the books I have read so far. I'm currently reading 2 other books at the moment that I can kind of show you how I would go about doing that. So for instance, I am finally reading Verity by Colleen Hoover. And what I would do is just go to Google Images, and you can split screen and then just find a cover and then drag and drop it over. Then I'm just going to close that, and then I can resize it. I think the iPad mini is a great size for the reading journal. Obviously, the reading journal looks great on all iPad sizes. I also use it on my 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I think it's really handy to have it on the iPad mini as well, because it's really nice reading experience reading on the mini, since it's essentially the same size, just a little bit bigger than my Kindle. I do 95% of my reading on the Kindle. I use the Libby app connected to my local library card so I can borrow books for free, and I read a lot of that on my Kindle. However, the exception is I do read self-help type books on my Kindle just because it's so much easier to highlight. Those are the books that I tend to like to highlight and keep track of quotes and stuff from, and so I like to do that experience on my Kindle because I read those a little bit more intently with the purpose of trying to learn something. Not that I'm not learning something from these books as well, but from self-help kind of educational book standpoint, I like reading those on my Kindle. Whereas books for pleasure or for fun or anything like that, I like doing that on my Kindle. Okay, person from the future here editing this video to let you know that you are allowed to laugh at me in the comments about the previous minute before this section, since I kept mixing up iPad mini and Kindle for whatever reason. I was just trying to say that I like using the iPad mini for reading self-help, educational type books, just because it's a nicer highlighting and reading experience for books like that, whereas I like using my Kindle for reading books for pleasure and just for fun and fiction type novels. Yeah, I don't know why I kept mixing up iPad mini and Kindle there. Kept saying Kindle when I meant iPad mini. When I did finally say Kindle, I meant Kindle. So yeah, you're allowed to laugh at me about that. Not sure what was going through my brain. I do use my iPad mini and my Kindle interchangeably for reading, but I do a lot more on my iPad mini outside of reading. I just had some weird mix-ups there in that section of the video. My apologies. Since the reading experience on the Kindle, since it is the e-ink technology, the e-reader style, it's a lot easier to read on this type of screen late at night, and the battery life is obviously really good on these. You don't have to charge them for 1 to 2 months essentially, just because of that e-reader technology. Alright, so back over into my reading journal, you'll see that there are numbers here at the top, and that's because you have 10 pages of these linked books here. So we have 12, and then we have 10 pages of 12. So we have 120 linked books. So for instance, if I hit the end of the line here, I can just go to number 2 and I have a whole new page of linked sections for my books. And the same goes for the series. We have 10 pages for all of these. So just going into what the series looks like, we have where you can paste the cover, the series name, author, genre, number of books for the series, a summary, and the series review. And so here you can kind of capture the series at a glance. So for example, like the Harry Potter series, you can have books 1 through 7 or whatever, have the title, the days that you started and ended those, as well as your ratings. So you can kind of see those at a glance as well. So that's how the series is. You can paste your series covers here, and we have 10 pages of 12 linked books, so effectively 120 places for you to link your series. So that is the My Library page, and I skipped down here to the series section. So hopping into our third tab here on the side, the reading list. This is essentially where you can just list out the books that you want to read. And you can also duplicate this page as well if you need more for your reading list. So you can come up here to the plus page icon and just hit current template and after, and you'll be able to kind of scroll to the next page for your reading list if you have more books than this that you want to read. So you can have your date added to your reading list, title, author, and the genre of the novel. All right, jumping down to the quotes collection. This is where you can write out the quote and where the book and author that quote was located, as well as the page number, because I find that very helpful. And then we have 10 pages for the quotes collection as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quotes and 10 pages, so 60 quotes. But of course you can duplicate any of these quote pages as well if you end up running out. So nice little section of quotes there. If I drop down to my trackers, this is where you can kind of track your reading. And so we have our reading goals. You can write the number of books that you want to read here, or the number of pages a day, or the number of minutes a day, or you can do all three. And then here is space for you to write out very kind of SMART goals style goals here if you have very specific reading goals that you have, as well as a currently reading list, and then a book lending list if you kind of borrow your books, maybe if you borrow or lend them from a library or a friend or acquaintance, a coworker, something like that, and then any book releases that you're expecting. So for instance, my reading goal this year was to read at least one book a month, and I've already surpassed that, but I did have 12 set for the year. And then I didn't set specific page or minute goals. And then here you can write very specific goals. Maybe read books from this many continents, read this many diverse books, read this many books from this type of author, and things like that. Then you can do your currently reading section. So typically I read 2 to 3 books at a time, just so I can jump between books during kind of the slow portions. So that's just kind of how I tend to read, but this is where you can write your currently reading, as well as where you're borrowing those books from and any book releases that you're expecting. Then going down to the challenges page, this is a place where you can track your reading challenges. If you do any reading challenges, there's quite a number of reading challenges out there, but I did include 2 of the most popular and then have a blank section for you to kind of write and illustrate your own challenges for reading. So read 52 books in 52 weeks, a book a week challenge, and then the A to Z challenge, which is choosing a book that starts with that letter and reading from there. So reading a book that starts with A, a book that starts with B. You can also do that from an author standpoint as well. That would work pretty well too. But yeah, this is the challenges page, and of course you can come in here and write your own challenges or bring in your own images or stickers to kind of illustrate other challenges down here as well. Then at the last tab here, we have our notes section, and this is where you can access blank pages within your reading journal. So we have a blank white, and then we have a dot grid here, we have a grid, and then we have a simple lined. And then we have a for when you need an extra section. So we have an extra library page, an extra book review page, reading list, series overview, a series book review, quotes collection, a trackers page, and a challenges page. And then this is where you want to write more about. So let's say that you are really into writing really long and in-depth book reviews. You can access additional pages to write more about your book or your series book review. So I'm just going to jump into these and swipe so you can see what they look like. And so those are the additional pages that you get kind of in the back of your journal here, where you can kind of paste and use those throughout whenever you need extra space. So the reading journal is very simple and very minimal in that it should be easy for you to write about your books, keep track of the books that you're reading and whatnot. I didn't want to make it super complicated, since I know a lot of us do read for pleasure and to have fun and to learn new things and to connect with other diverse authors and whatnot. And I wanted the reading journal to complement our reading style, not make it this entirely new thing and kind of complicated and stuff. So just a really simple reading journal. I really like using this to kind of see what I'm reading at a glance, as well as, kind of make it my own and personalize it. Something about having a digital reading journal on my iPad like this just feels more analog and tangible. I can just pull in the covers here. I can choose my favorite cover, because we know there's different versions of the cover depending on when you purchase it and whatnot, and we can choose our favorite covers and then go into here and write our own reviews of the books that we're reading. And then I've made it a bit more fun with adding the challenges here, as well as a tracking section for tracking your reading goals that you can review at the very end of the year. I have gotten questions about why I kind of approach reading this way with the digital reading journal instead of just using something like Goodreads, and I honestly don't like the interface of Goodreads at all. I find it pretty ugly, I'm not gonna lie. And so while I do have like a digital version, I use Storygraph instead of Goodreads to track the books that I want to read and the books that I'm currently reading and the books that I've finished. My digital reading journal is my more analog experience. It's really just for me to see all of my books at a glance, see what I thought of them, writing my reviews, because I don't write reviews on Goodreads or Storygraph or anything like that, and this gives me a chance to use an Apple Pencil and tangibly analog it out with writing out those reviews. And I really like that experience, and I like that the iPad brings a more analog experience to these things, just like it does with digital planning as well. So that is the main reason why I use a digital reading journal. I can also customize it with my own challenges and just make it a lot more personal than I can with an app that everybody uses, if that makes sense. So this is the tour and kind of setup of my reading journal, and this is how I use it. Lately, I've just been using kind of the My Library section to document what I'm reading, and then I can go in here to write my reviews at the very end. And like I said, I use this reading journal a ton on my iPad Pro, 12.9 inch, and across all of my devices, but I really like the experience that it brings on the mini because it is very notebook size. It's very true book size, which I find really handy and really nice, and I particularly really like using the reading journal on the iPad mini, again because it's so similar in size to the Kindle. They're just the iPad mini is obviously just a little bit bigger than the Kindle, but it's a really nice experience to have these both kind of in tandem whenever I'm reading. So I hope this tour was helpful and gave you a little sneak peek into how I use the reading journal and all that you can use with the reading journal. It's very simple, which is why I didn't offer a tour or a setup video when I first launched the reading journal, but I know a ton of you were interested in kind of seeing how I use it and whatnot, and I just for more of an analog experience when it comes to reading and writing out my thoughts about the books that I'm reading. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer any that you have in the comments down below. I will have a link to this reading journal in the description of this video. I'll also have a link to my Storygraph. That is the app that I use to keep track of the books that I'm reading or the books that I want to read. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye!